Now, Donald Trump's border wall crisis has led to a 19-day government shutdown. Business is not getting done. People are not getting paid. Why? Because there's a standoff over the funding of it. Trump wants $5.7 billion to fund a wall on the Mexican border. He says will keep the U.S. safe. The Democrats say the wall won't make a difference and will only create a humanitarian crisis. The shutdown also means that some 800,000 federal employees and contractors have not been paid for at least 3 weeks. How's it going to end? My friend and former colleague, Al-Jazeera's Hoda Abdel-Hamid, has been reporting from the Mexican side of the border, and we're going to speak to her about it. Before we get to the story, though, I want to introduce her to you because she'll be one of the people we'll be going to once a week for an insider's view of world events that affect all of us. I worked with Hoda for 13 years when I was anchoring on Al-Jazeera in Qatar, and I crossed over to her live in almost every hotspot on the planet, from the Israeli-Gaza border, where she was shot at by an Israeli sniper fire and also targeted with tear gas. She's also been in Syria, Iraq, and many other controversial areas. She's won 3 Emmys recently, an award from the New York Film Festival, and many others. I spent so much time with your achievements, Hoda, that we can hardly have any time to talk about this show. Hoda, you've just come back from the Mexican side of the wall. Tell us what you saw and what's going on there.
Well, the first thing that surprised me when I arrived there is that actually there's already a wall. And that wall stretches for about 1,000 kilometers. Now, granted, the whole northern Mexican border or southern U.S. border, depends on which side you look at it, is about 3,000 kilometers long. But in the middle of that, there are very long stretches that are desert, extremely difficult for anyone to go through that. And also there are other areas that are extremely dangerous for migrants or asylum seekers to transit through. So next to the urban areas, in the accessible areas, there's already a wall. And that wall has been a work in progress since the mid-90s. It actually started under Bill Clinton, and basically every U.S. president has added his own legacy to that wall. So that surprised me very much, because when you hear all what's going on, when you hear the debate in the U.S., you think that that border is wide open. It's not the case. Does it stop people from crossing? Not really.
And Donald Trump is citing that specific area and building the wall on, so many things, that the rapists are coming, to stop the rapists coming through, and drugs. But actually, drugs come through in so many different parts of the country that this wall won't make any difference.
Listen, the cartels are so powerful, and they have so many resources that build a wall, build 2 walls, they will always find a way to get those drugs across. I mean, these are cartels that had actually made themselves submarines, and with those submarines, they had sent drugs not only to the U.S., but across the Atlantic all the way to Europe. So that is not going to stop the drugs. Will it slow down human beings trying to get into the U.S.? Of course it will slow down human beings, because it is difficult, it is risky, and you need to find the right time and the right way to manage to sneak across. But, I was there along that border. I spoke to many of these Central Americans trying to get to the United States. Did anyone seem like a criminal? No. I mean, I'm sure among a large group of people, there's surely some bad apples. That's quite normal and taken for granted. But the vast majority of them are really people who are escaping poverty, and who are also escaping that endemic violence that exists in those countries. We don't know much about it from this side of the world. And it's only when I arrived there and I listened to people that I realized they don't live in a war per se. There's no bombs, there's no drones, there's no artillery, but it's constant violence at your doorstep, in your house, out in front of your house, at your work. It's all the time.
So what is Donald Trump up to? I mean, why is he so obsessed about this wall? I know he says that there's a crisis there. I'm not really sure there is, but talk us through his end game here and the sort of impact it's having on the government under shutdown at the moment.
But just to make it clear, there is no crisis along that border. I've traveled quite a few hundred kilometers. Yes, there are people trying to cross. Yes, sometimes it's dangerous, but there certainly is no crisis at the moment. I think Donald Trump is so adamant about it because he's been talking about it ever since his electoral campaign. Remember, build that wall, and you'd have this whole audience repeating it in unison. And I think at this stage, we just got rid of the primaries in the U.S. They're already preparing for the presidential elections, which are only 2 years away now. And this wall is quite clear from the way he speaks, is the one legacy he wants to have. So far, ironically, he's the president who talked most about the wall, and he's the one who built less of the wall. All I have seen that was added during the Trump administration is a bit of razor wire on the U.S. side. We've seen also some slabs of metal that were added to heighten that wall. But that's all what he has done so far compared to his predecessors. I mean, George W. Bush has built about 800 kilometers of the existing wall.
Hardly known that. And Hoda, the fallout now, the fact that the government has been shut down, I mean, if it continues until this weekend, it's going to be the longest in history. That should be having quite a devastating impact, certainly on the employees and his popularity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he keeps on saying that many of the people who are hurt by this government shutdown are behind him and do understand him, but it's probably not true because it is biting. These are people who are not getting salaries anymore, and who knows when they're going to be paid. And so he is definitely going to lose. One thing is to promise to make your country safer and to keep illegal immigrants out of the country, to try to stop that huge flow of drugs that comes in. The other thing is to actually cut the livelihood of 800,000 people and expect them to be understanding about this.
Hoda, talking about drugs, you were in Tijuana, and you were telling me over the phone a couple of days ago about what you saw happening there, how prevalent it is, and the relationship between these drug warlords and the police.
Well, in Tijuana, Tijuana is one of the most violent cities in the world. If you walk around, you actually don't feel it. But the statistic is that nearly 4,500 people have been killed over the past 2 years alone in Tijuana.
Wow.
Okay, that's how dangerous it is. Now, it is quite symbolic because not very far from Tijuana there's a town called Tecate, and that's actually where the famous El Chapo started his business. He built a tunnel under the wall because it already existed at the time to transfer kilos of cocaine and marijuana into the United States. But if you go a bit further down, I went to a place called Nogales, and that's at the border with Arizona. Now, that place, basically, it's a small town, and I was told that at least half of the people who live there actually work for the cartel. This is how much they are in control of that border. Now, we spoke to a smuggler, but not a people smuggler, who does work for the cartel and who does take his orders from the cartel, and he told me that it all goes back to the same leadership, and he also told me that there's very close coordination about how to move people across that border and how to move drugs across that border. And he told me very clearly it's never at the same time, but always in coordination. Now, the cartel is in complete control of a vast area along that border. Somehow it keeps secure also the U.S. because there is no way, for example, that any group like Al-Qaeda or any other group who would try to sneak into the U.S. Have any kind of base in that area. The cartel won't allow that. But we were also told that they also control a vast territory on the U.S. side And according to this people smuggler, said that there are a few bad apples among the border patrol, among the rancheros, which are basically the farmers in Arizona, who for a little fee do help sneak immigrants and take them further inside the United States. But that is what the trafficker told us.
Well, it just makes you realize, Hoda, that...
tell you if it's absolutely true or not, but that's what he said.
I mean, you just realize what a big problem it is, but thank you for shedding light on it for us. That's Hoda Abdel-Hamid. Bye, Hoda. That's our show for tonight. News is next.